There was once an elderly couple, and they lived in a neat little cottage at the edge of the forest. But they didn't have much work, and they were getting old, and so they couldn't pay their rent. And the king was a very greedy man, and he insisted that everybody paid rent bang on time, or they were thrown out of their homes. And so when the old couple couldn't pay their rent, the bailiff was sort of nice, and he let them stay just a little longer. But after the third month that they didn't have enough rent, he threw them out. Well, where could they go? They could only carry a small bag each. They had to leave everything behind, and they'd lived in that cottage all their lives, and they were so sad. But it was spring. There was work to do on the farms, and so the old couple managed to get work. The woman was a very good cook and could sew and mend things, and her husband was good at repairing machinery, and they could both dig and they could both weed. And so they kept themselves going all summer, travelling around, going from farm to farm, sometimes in towns mending pots or pans, or making or mending clothes. And somehow they survived. But one very chilly autumn day, they were cold, they were hungry, and they came to a village they'd never visited before. But the people there didn't like strangers. They were suspicious and said, "No, we're not giving you any work. You're probably here to rob us. We don't like strangers. Just get out." The day was drawing to a close. They had nowhere to sleep and hadn't eaten. And as they walked across the village green, the old man stopped by the stream, and he saw a lovely round stone. And he picked it up, rubbed it, looked at it, and held it very high and said, "Oh my goodness, you've got magic soup stones in your river." "Magic soup stones?" said the people. "Yes," they said. "If you put this in hot boiling water, it makes the most amazing magic soup." "Why's the soup magic?" "Well," said the old man, "it's magic because you make it just with water and a stone." "Pah," they said, "you're talking scribble." But the old woman said, "We'll prove it to you. If you bring us a really large cauldron, that's a really big cooking pot, and some firewood, we will make some right here, right now, and we will prove to you how delicious it is. And we will feed the whole village for free." Well, some people laughed, some people nudged each other and winked, but the mayor said, "Well, I think the blacksmith has got a big cauldron." So he sent for it, and it was a huge cooking pot that would take litres and litres and litres of soup. And then the woodcutter said, "Well, I've got some wood I can't sell because it's a bit tatty." And he bought that and put it up in the middle of the village green. And they got a fire going and they put the cauldron on it. And the old man and the old woman, they polished off the stone, rubbed it clean, and whispered some gobbledygook words over it, pretending they were doing magic. And they put the stone in the soup. And the water began to boil. Said the old couple, "Can you smell that? Oh, this is going to be excellent." "What a pity," said the old man, "that we haven't got some salt, because a little bit of salt just brings the flavour out." And a woman standing nearby, because a big crowd had gathered, said, "Oh, I've got some salt." And she ran home and got it. And then someone standing nearby said, "Would a little pepper help?" "Oh, yes," said the old woman. "That would be wonderful. Pepper is just, it just makes it a bit more zingy, you know." And then the old man said, he tasted the soup and he said, "Has anyone got an old parsnip or a carrot or something? Because although the soup is amazing, giving it a bit of texture and a bit of colour really helps, because as everybody knows, food that's got a bit of colour and a bit of texture, it tastes so much better." "Oh, I've got some old parsnips that are a bit withered, and I've got a couple of spare carrots," said a lady. "Excellent," said the old woman. "It doesn't matter if they're a bit withered and a bit twisted. Just bring them along." And so people started bringing food out of their houses. and somebody had a cabbage which they'd forgotten at the back of the cupboard, and they pulled the outside grotty leaves off, and the old man and the old woman pulled out their chopping knives, and they went chop, 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 and they put everything in the soup. Oh, and soon everybody began to realise that this soup was amazing. The smell was fantastic. And the old woman found some wild thyme growing on the edge of the village green. So she picked that and put it in. And somebody bought some rosemary from their garden, and somebody else some sage leaves. Everybody bought a little something, and soon the smell was just drifting across the village green. "Is it ready?" asked the mayor. "Oh, yes," said the old man. "You just need to bring your bowls." And so everybody bought a bowl and a spoon from their houses, and the old man and the old woman stirred and stirred and stirred. And then they said a bit more gobbledygook over the soup, pretending it was magic, and said, "That will make sure that the magic stays and that there's going to be enough for everybody." Well, within 10 minutes, everybody was in a long queue across the village green, and they'd all got a bowl and a spoon. And the old man served soup into every bowl. And there was enough to go around, and everybody agreed it was the finest soup they'd ever eaten. And the old woman looked in the pot and said, "The stone has done his magic. There's enough for seconds." And a few people went back to their houses and bought some bread, and they shared that around. And they had seconds and even thirds. And the bread, they just mopped round the bowl and handed out lovely mopping, scrapings. Oh, I always think that's the best bit, don't you? And soon everybody was full. And somebody bought a fiddle, and somebody else bought a trumpet, and somebody else bought a flute. And soon there was music and dancing on the village green. The old man and the old woman took the cauldron to the stream and washed it out carefully and washed the stone. And they were just putting the stone into their rucksacks, and the mayor of the village came over and said, "Would you please sell me your stone? I've never known my people so happy or so together." And the old man said, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry, it's a magic stone, and if I sell it, then the magic will go. But I can give it to you, and if you wish to give me something as a gift, then that is fine." "Very well," said the mayor. "What gift can I give you?" "Well," said the old man, "my wife and I have nowhere to stay tonight. If you can find a dry barn for us, and maybe my wife could do with a pair of boots, if that someone's throwing out an old pair of boots that she could have, that would be wonderful." "Of course," said the mayor, "we can arrange that, can't we?" And everybody cheered and said, "Yes, yes, I've got some old boots." "And I've got some old boots for the old man," said somebody. "And I've got an old cloak. Would that be of any use?" And so that night, the old man and the old woman were put up in the spare room of the mayor's own house. And they even had a bath, and were given breakfast in the morning, and a pile of clean, fresh clothes, because they'd worn the same clothes all summer. They couldn't take anything with them. And they left, and they were happy. And the mayor had the stone, and he promised that every Saturday night stone soup would be made and shared with everybody. Well, the old man and the old woman decided they liked making stone soup, and so they went from village to town and round the country, making stone soup wherever they went, and always giving the stone freely in exchange for somewhere to sleep and anything they needed. Maybe a new hat, or maybe a bag, because their bag had split. And so they never took more than they needed, but just enough for the next day. And everywhere they went, people were thrilled to learn the secret of stone soup. Now, one winter's day, it was cold and icy, and the old couple were shivering, and they found themselves very near the king's castle. And the old woman had an idea, and they went down to the river, and they found a lovely smooth stone. They washed it, dried it, and put it in the old man's rucksack. And then they went up to the castle front door, and they knocked. And they said to the butler who opened the door, "Is the king at home, please? We'd like to show him a wonder." butler said, "Go away, get lost." But the king happened to be passing at that moment, and he said, "What sort of wonder?" And the old man said, "We have a magic stone which will make you loved by all your people, and everybody will think you are absolutely wonderful, and they will put a statue up to you within no time." Well, the king was amazed at this. He did know he wasn't particularly popular. "How does your magic work?" So the old man got his stone out of the knapsack and put it on the table. And they explained that it was a magic stone that would make magic soup that would feed everybody. "Well, I'll send it down to the kitchen for the cook to have a go," said the king. "Oh, no," said the old lady. "It can only be used by the owner, and we give it to you. It is your stone. You now own it, and nobody else must ever touch it, or the magic will drain away." "Well, what do I do?" said the king. "Well," said the old lady, "ask the cook in the kitchen for his biggest cauldron. Build a fire up, put the cauldron on it, get it filled with nice clean water, put the stone in it, and we will teach you the magic." So the king had all of that done, but he made sure nobody else touched the stone. And when everything was ready, the king put the stone in the water, and the water started to heat. "Now," said the old man and the old woman, "we will teach you the special magic words. Hubble, hubble, bubble, bubble, fire burn, cauldron bubble, make this soup at the double." And then they taught him some nonsense words, some gobbledygook. And the king learned it very carefully because he wanted his popularity rating to go up. He wanted people to think he was amazing and wonderful. And very slowly they started to bring in a bit of this and a bit of that. And the soup began to be delicious. Oh, the smell was fantastic. "Is it ready?" said the king. "Oh, yes," said the old couple. "You can taste it if you like." And so the king sent for 3 bowls and spoons, and he and the old couple all had a bowlful. And then the king said, "What do I do now? How do I get it out to the hungry people?" "Well," said the old man, "you get a trolley and you get some of your strong men to lift the cauldron onto the trolley, and we take it out into the town square." And so they did that. And in the town square, the town crier got out her big bell and rang, "Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, it is a cold night, and the king proclaims that everybody who is hungry can have some hot soup. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes." And soon the square was filled with people. And the king said, "Go and get your bowls, and I will serve you soup." Well, very quickly people got a bowl and a spoon, and they formed a long queue that went 3 times round the town square. And the old man and the old woman said a bit more gobbledygook over the cauldron, just to make sure there was enough for everybody. And the soup was served, and everybody had a piece of soup. And the old woman sent down to the kitchen for some bread to go with the soup, because you can't have soup without bread. By the end of that night, everybody had a full tummy. And the following morning, when the king went out, everybody cheered and applauded and roared and said, "Hooray for the king, hooray for the king." And the king decided he liked being cheered. He liked being loved. This worked. It made him very happy. And so he said to the old couple, "What can I do for you? Do you want money for the stone?" And the old couple said, "No, we can't accept money or the magic will disappear. But you can give us a gift." "What would you like as a gift?" said the king. And the old couple looked at each other and smiled and said, "We've noticed that down at the edge of the forest there's a pretty little cottage that no one is living in. It's been empty all summer. It's only a little 2-roomed cottage. If you could give us that, and we don't have to pay rent for the rest of our lives, then we, for our part, will go round the kingdom and teach every town and village the magic of stone soup, so nobody ever goes hungry again. It's a deal, said the king. For the rest of their lives, the old couple lived in their own snug little cottage, and nobody ever asked them for rent. In the whole kingdom, nobody ever went hungry. And as for the king, he discovered it was quite nice to be kind, and he liked being loved.